Hi, you're listening to Boggy Talk, Faith Conversations in the Mud, a resource of Church on Bayshore. Boggy Talk is recorded on Boggy Bayou in Niceville, Florida, and is hosted by Justin Wyatt and James Ross, pastors at Church on Bayshore. We typically want every matter of faith and life to have crystal clear answers, but it isn't always that easy. This podcast digs in to help Christians think with a kingdom mentality about topics that sometimes get muddy and bog us down. So let's dive in.
Well, Happy New Year and welcome to Boggy Talk. Hope you're doing well. Hope your 2022 is off to an incredible, best ever, epically awesome start. Speaking of epically awesome, James Ross, how you doing, buddy?
Wow, thanks, Justin.
It gets better every time.
2022. That sounds so much better than 2021.
Yeah.
But 2020 sounded the coolest, and it was not the coolest.
It was definitely not the coolest by far.
Can you believe it's almost been 2 years since all that started? I guess.
At times it feels like 2 years, and at times it feels like 20, and at times it feels like 2 months.
Days,
I'm just like, goodness gracious. But hey, we made it, Lord willing, we're here, and it's a new year. But
it's a new year.
Yeah. So as we get started on
New
Boggy
Year,
Talk,
New You.
That's right. New Year, New You.
You change on January
17 steps to a better 2022.
That's our new sermon series.
That's right. It'll be 17 weeks. We're not going to go through the book of Mark. We're just going to basically reference some self-help tools to just help people.
That's hitting too close to home in
some church
world. Yeah.
So true. Hey, that's not what we're doing.
We are not.
Yeah. So
we are doing a kind of New Year series.
Year series. Yeah, we are kicking off this new series this coming Sunday. I'm like,
yes.
What's the title?
Yeah.
It is New Year, Same Truth.
That's a very James Ross sermon.
It is like New Year, same truth. It's the same truth, people. I get almost.
I mean, you too. I just get to say it more, So,
yeah, but it is like we as we talked about and prayed about it and just planning. It's like every church. It is cool. You capture the momentum of the season, and it is. And people this time of year, we're thinking like, how do we want to be different, and how do we want to change? And we're looking back and we're looking ahead, and that's what we're going to do today on Boggy Talk. But specific to Sunday, there's always, I think what's funny to me, it's like we try to package the new year as if there's some new revolutionary idea that's actually going to change us. There's like, here's 4 steps to a new, better you, new and improved you. It's 2021 2.0. Like now 2022 is just going to improve on you know what?
You're not an Apple operating system.
That's right. We just don't download the latest iOS and and all of a sudden we're better. It's really leaning into trusting and re-engaging the same truth that's been the truth since the beginning. Yeah. And there's going to be, as we go through, Mark 9, there's really, and 10, there's just some awesome truths in there. This week, for example, we're starting with, sometimes all you can do is pray. And I think that's, it's just interesting how if you're thinking about, hey, New Year, or somebody who's thinking about New Year, and really that's causing them to evaluate their life because you look back, around this time of year, and then which we're going to do in just a second. Yeah. And you look forward, like we're going to just talk about these things that, man, they're just so important, and they've always been important. And so, I would encourage you to come and check it out. If you're just watching online right now, that's fine too. I wouldn't say that's fine, but we welcome you, to do that and then eventually plug in. But and just for reference, like when you say that title, like all you have to do is pray. All you can do is pray. We're not saying
sometimes.
There's sometimes all you can do is pray. Like that's true in a lot of situations. Like it's really out of our hands. But what we're not talking about is like when you ask, so like, hey, there's this great need in the church, the community, and people are like, yeah, I'll pray about that. That's not the all. Sometimes all you can do is pray.
No, you won't.
That usually just means no, you're not. And you're going to say no. That's just the spiritual way of saying I'll get back to you by not getting back to you.
Yeah, that's right. But I sound very Christian-y.
Yeah. So anyway, let's look back and let's look ahead. Yeah. So we're looking back at 2021.
Yes. So I came up with some lists. Some of these are objective.
You came up with lists.
Some of those are not objective.
So what kind of list you got there, buddy?
So first, I thought this would be interesting to share the 4 most downloaded songs of 2021.
Oh, wow.
Are you ready?
I have no clue what these are going to be because...
I'll go from 4 to 1. You ready?
Right,
Number 4, and the only one I've heard of. Blinding Lights by The Weeknd.
Blinding Lights.
I like that song.
Yeah,
I think the Super Bowl made it more downloaded.
Yeah, probably so. Yeah, that's right. He did the Super Bowl, and it was kind of weird.
Because
it was
he had the diaper head.
It was super weird.
Yeah, it was weird.
He's
talented.
Super talented. A little weird, super talented.
Number 3, again, I don't know what the song is about, so don't judge me. Positions by Ariana Grande.
Oh, Ariana, man. Speaking of talented,
I like how you talk about her like my girl
Ariana. She's so ridiculously. There's this. I forget what late night show she was on at one point. You can YouTube it, and she does impressions of all these other singers.
Oh, really?
And they are spot on. Like this, she's incredibly talented. I don't like her music's usually not great. Personally, like it's usually just about stuff that you're like, and skip. But you're a talented girl.
Number 2, haven't heard of this song or this person. Driver's License by Olivia Rodrigo.
Oh yeah, it's annoying. Like even like it was like super popular.
Yeah.
Or like maybe in April or May, and it played all the time. Like when we listened here in the car, and our kids are like, "Turn this song off! It's so annoying." Wow. It's basically like. It's like teenage.
That's weird. It was on K-Love because you only listen to K-Love.
No,
I don't understand.
No way. It's actually like a teenage stalker song. Like basically, it's like I remember just having like this so dumb. Like she's like, I got my driver's license. I'm driving by your house and remembering how you don't remember me. And it's like, just move on. Like, yeah, you're better than that. It's a terrible song.
And number 1.
Come on. What is it?
That probably didn't sound very good on the podcast. Is Dynamite by BTS.
Dynamite. I know BTS, but I can't sing that song.
What was your favorite song of 2021?
My favorite song of
You know what mine is?
Come on.
Best song that came out in 2021?
What?
Levitating.
By
Dua Lipa,
I don't know.
Whoever else is it. Are you serious?
I don't know.
Goodness.
I mean, I probably so I'm really bad with song titles.
Catch up. Come on, baby. Put some. Okay, yeah. Anyway, sorry.
I'm really bad with song titles and artist names. My favorite song, the song that I listen to a lot end of the year because it just all bleeds together. There's a Maverick City song called "Sufficient for
You're
Today"
so
that I was like put that on. I'm like, come on, let's sing it. So we'll probably sing that at church.
All right,
but.
Well, hey, let's keep going. So, top 4 sports moments. These are my opinion, but I think
you better say.
Yeah, I'm going to.
You better.
I'm going to. So, of course, it would be my undefeated coaching seasons that I had. No, I'm just kidding. But one of my kids, 8-year-old, his basketball team didn't lose a game. His football team didn't lose a game. And his baseball team came in second place.
That's pretty good year.
He's pretty good, on that. He's not the best player on any of those teams, though, but it's the coach.
It's not about being the best player. It's about just making sure you're on the best team.
That's true. But speaking of being the best player, I would have to say that one of the top 4 sports moments this season had to be Tom Brady winning the Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in his first year.
That was pretty incredible. I will say humbly, because I don't care for him because of the Buccaneers.
Because he's so handsome and good at sports
and just what he did to the Falcons and the Patriots. It's just hard to get over that.
The Falcons really have to blame themselves.
They do, absolutely. But it stings. It stings. But I mean, the fact that he's still doing what he's doing, like he truly is incredible.
Yeah, could win the Super Bowl again this year too. We'll see.
They could.
So speaking of Atlanta, I would have to say that in the top 4 would be the Braves winning their World Series.
It absolutely was.
I know that
it's number 1.
Okay. I think number 3, and
we just relished that the Braves actually they won the World Series and go Braves.
Number 3, well, this is really in no particular order, but would have to probably be the Olympics and the fact that hardly anybody cared about them.
It was sad because it was like the 2020 Olympics in 2021, and it just was. I think this is my theory about the Olympics. Is that it used to be so awesome because you had to tune in and watch it, but now it's on 24/7 and you can just kind of tune in when you want to. You can go back and watch. So we've kind of lost some of the and it was.
Why the Olympics aren't as good?
Why?
Not enough communists anymore.
Oh, man.
So there's not enough bad guys.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're like, you just want to cheer for everybody now.
Yeah. Oh, Russia, they're coming out of oppression.
You're kind of like, good for them.
This girl's only chance of life. Like, we understand the backstory now more. Okay, and then I would have to say, and this happened recently, is Steph Curry breaking the all-time.
That's pretty incredible.
3-point.
Pretty awesome.
Ray Allen has taken almost twice as many 3-point shots. or played twice as many games, as Curry has, and Ray Allen's number 2. So
what's he doing with his life? If that, I mean, that's
well, he's
practiced a little more. Oh, well,
he was Jesus.
Missed your chance.
Game.
Sorry, I don't know who he is because NBA.
You never saw them. Don't see that movie, so never mind. Okay, let's go to politics. All right, so these I would say are the top 4.
Getting in dangerous territory.
Did you have anything to add to sports? Did I?
The Braves won the World Series.
Politics, I would say.
And Georgia lost to Alabama again, the SEC championship, but redemption's coming.
Okay, politics. Number 1 is I would have to say the January 6th Capitol attack, which is crazy to believe that was less than a year ago.
Wow.
Doesn't that seem like it was like 10 years ago?
Wow, yeah. It really does.
Was a big deal.
Was very significant.
Yeah, significant. Revealing.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have to say, and this isn't necessarily a one-time thing, but just the vaccine mandate.
That caused a lot of controversy.
Yeah, it still is.
Yeah, it still is, because I was driving just the other day. And there were protesters. I was just like, I mean, not the fact, I mean, I am thankful that we live in a country where you can peacefully protest really anything.
I think I only saw one church member out there.
I'm one of those guys. I actually saw it. I was at the stoplight and saw it up ahead, so I got on my phone and recorded it. I haven't gone back
really?
because
I'll have to go back and see if that was who I thought it was. Okay,
that kind of just tells you what kind of person.
Also, they still don't know what day it was because that happens regularly in Niceville, so it could have been. Okay, number 3 would just be Biden becoming president.
Yeah,
and I mean, certainly, I would say, I mean this as neutrally as I can. Basically, inflation is going like crazy right now. In some ways, in response to him being president, and I just think that obviously, anytime there's a new president, that's a significant.
Yeah, there's going to be changes. Yes, exactly.
And then obviously, and I just don't think we talk about this enough, but is the withdrawal of the troops in Afghanistan suddenly, and then the effects, that happened very quickly after that. So anything else you would add to that?
Man, any fuel to add to the fires of those? No, those are very significant events.
Then in the church, and I don't mean our church, even though I'm going to get there, and that'll be a good segue into our celebrations and all that. Just the church in general. So these are 4 things that I think are a big deal. I think one is, statistics have shown now that 30%, that's 3 out of 10 people are saying that they are unaffiliated with religion.
Yeah, that is a huge shift.
Almost a third of our country has no religious affiliation.
Yeah, and I think the shift in that number is because people who would have before answered that question as probably nominally Christian,
correct.
Now they are much more comfortable in saying they have no faith.
Yeah, absolutely. This is maybe related to that, but also not, is pretty much across the board, evangelical churches have experienced a 20 to 40% decrease in average attendance pre-COVID.
Right.
We are actually getting close to where we were pre-COVID, but most churches just have not bounced back.
Right. And lots of reasons for that, but I think probably the main reason, I mean, I do believe there are still some people who, for legitimate reason, medical, aren't engaged, but that's a small number now. I think most is people who are here, or I say here, who are at church or part of a church, kind of just obligatory or not super engaged, and they just have moved on with life. And I wouldn't, everyone's different. I'm not casting any judgment, or you can't pronounce any judgment. But at the same time, it's like they just are like not engaged, and so it's like, where's the heart? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of know. Number 3, I would have to say is the rise and fall of Mars Hill, and just that caught a lot of Christianity.
That was huge
by storm, and
I think it was so huge because it podcast, because it highlighted. It's one story, but it highlighted a significant movement in evangelicalism in the 90s and 2000s that really affects a lot of people who are in leadership now. But it was one story. It was kind of like a very high profile story that highlights a lot of different stories that people resonated with. Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think there'll be residual effects to, kind of what has been exposed, and positive and negative, so. And then number 4, and I would probably say maybe most significantly, is just the continued revelations when it comes to sexual abuse in the church. I mean, you see what's happened with Hillsong and so many of their leaders stepping down because of sexting and inappropriate things, not dealing with situations, and even maybe unrelated, but just bullying leadership from the group at Piper's Church. Like that's not really sex abuse, but kind of similar.
But abusive environments, where things aren't held into account.
And then, of course, the Southern Baptist Convention, actually appointing an investigation, and then there being, argument about whether or not we should have that the way we're going to have it. I just think there's a lot of attention there, and I think there's a lot of tension there.
Right.
So,
the only thing I would add to that, and it's not really an event, but it's more of a theme of 2021, and we've talked about this before. There's some positives to it and also some negatives to it, but that's really just the whole, I would call it, is the deconstructivist movement in 2021.
You're right.
And I think there definitely are some positives because, deconstruction is just tearing down things.
Right.
With the goal of building them back up in a healthy, right way.
Well,
Wes, I mean, that should be the goal.
Theory,
but a lot of it is
burn, baby, burn,
just to burn, and and I think that's where we want to help people as pastors is to deconstruct things the right way. When I say the right way, I mean dealing with the issues and then building back up that in a way that points to Jesus. That's just been a big theme.
You're right.
It's just like that affects like the rise and fall March Hill. That is part of it. Like it's a deconstructivist thing.
I should have said that instead of the rise and fall of March Hill.
But it's part of it, But that's a specific
failure.
Yeah.
Okay, and then in our church, let's talk about 4 things that I think are pretty significant in 2021. One would be Alec Ammons joining our team. That was this year as well.
That happened this year.
Is that crazy?
Well, and Bob too.
That's number 2.
Oh, sorry,
you got ahead of me.
Sorry, I didn't realize you were. See, in my list, I had just staff as number. Like a full thing. So sorry, guys.
Okay.
I see Alec. James just ranked his favorite.
No,
I'm totally kidding. Totally kidding.
Chronologically.
There you go.
Alec.
Yes.
Bob. Alphabetically too.
Alphabetically. There we go. Yeah. I mean, huge for our students here and families.
Both and
of Bob. His title is senior adults, but he does a lot of people stuff. He is. He's just
funny.
Yes, he is. He is. If you
Alex
haven't had,
kind of funny.
Yeah,
Bob's really funny.
Yeah, if you haven't had, if your path hasn't crossed with Bob, man, you need to spend some time with him. He's a needed voice on our staff team too, and a presence too, which is just wonderful.
Yeah, and then number 3 would be which probably the average church member doesn't even care that much, but our vote to change the definitions of our ministry leadership teams, creating a community outreach and evangelism ministry leadership team. So missions and community outreach evangelism were all one thing. So we've kind of separated those to focus more on engaging our church in missions and engaging our church in local outreach and evangelism. Yeah. And then, of course, creating a discipleship ministry leadership team so that our pastors have more lay leadership help in terms of executing how we make disciples. So I think those were huge. And the number 4, I would say, is we saw our highest number of baptisms in a long time. And we rejoice in just the number of people who profess faith in Christ and are following him. And it was a good year in that regard. There's a lot of other things, but I just think those are probably the 4 most significant shaping things in our church.
Yeah, and I will, I had staff. I combined like 1 and 2 in the whole staff thing, and the only thing that I have different, and it's part of what you're saying, is really, and it's a little less quantifiable maybe, but it's really, I feel like in 2021 we took some good steps pressing into our mission. And we saw, in addition to baptisms and this realignment with our ministry teams, the Connect team started, which is really helping, Michael under his leadership and the Connect team, really welcoming people, but with the goal of helping people really our process of helping people get connected into the body in life groups, which is a huge thing. I think, we just kind of assume those things happen, that we really want to be intentional going after people. And I think, baptisms is a result of many people in this church intentionally sharing their faith. When we
I only did a few of those baptisms.
Yeah, and we had, and we rejoice in every baptism.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of churches, the baptisms that they have are the highest proportion are kids who are, growing up in the church, which that's awesome. And that is just as great to celebrate. But they're not necessarily seeing adults baptized because of adults sharing their faith with neighbors, coworkers, et cetera. And we've seen a lot of adults baptized.
It's both and absolutely.
And it's just exciting. That's just an extra exciting piece of it.
Well, personal life. What are some things you celebrate from 2021?
I would say personally,
besides another year working with
just
me.
Another year working alongside you, man, it's just the best. It's good. I would say personally, growing in faith. The word.
You think you have? No, I'm just kidding.
Then your evaluation. No.
Yeah.
I think, there's always ways I want to continue to grow, and, an area that I identify as a way that I need to grow personally in my relationship with the Lord is really in contentment. There's just a lot of things that I think we always think, and this is a year we think if all this changes, then I'll be content. And really what I think ending 2021, there's a lot of things I'm like, I just don't know these things are actually going to change next year, whether it's something with family or something here in work or just busyness of stuff. Am I looking to those things to change to be content, or am I just saying, regardless, I'm going to be content and God's going to be enough? So I think, I feel like growing in that, recognizing deeper my own inadequacies and insufficiency and need for Jesus. I think just family-wise, seeing some real steps of growth in our children spiritually, taking some steps of faith, some good, and a lot of these are good conversations. And I think, a lot of times as parents, you're waiting for these like aha moments, and those do happen where it's just this definitive conversation or whatever. But what I'm learning is that it's like a lot of time and conversations, and sometimes you can pinpoint when those things happen, and sometimes you just look back and you say, wow, I see this happening over a period of time. One of the things that we did a few years ago that I think has helped us kind of remember some of these conversations or moments with our kids is we got a jar, and we keep it on the kitchen counter, and we have some paper, and when we have those, we try to write them down.
Oh, nice.
Whether it's just a funny moment, even if it's just something funny that happens. So at the end of sometime between Christmas and New Year, we'll sit down as a family and we'll actually go through those and read those it's just kind of look back, because it's just so easy to forget a lot of good things that God does. Yeah. And then also, I'm thankful for some inroads in our neighborhood and community with relationships with neighbors, and hopefully, point them to Jesus.
That's very good. I think for me, just echoing what you said, Jesus is enough. And I think that by God's grace every year, I think that is more and more true in my heart. And, there are certain things that, I'm very goal-oriented, driven. And I just think, hey, I may never fully see some of these things happen, but Jesus is enough, and that's all right. I do think, and I have 4. Another would be, and it's not the fact that I spoke at the Florida Baptist Convention, but the fact that I was speaking was just like a celebration to me of God's faithfulness in my marriage, God's faithfulness in my family, God's faithfulness in ministry assignments. It's just cool, all that brought me there, So it was an honor, of course, but the reason I was doing it, was really the bigger thing. And so we were singing before I got up to speak. I'm like, who am I? You're so good to me. Number 3 would be our family. We celebrate 5 years fostering. We're in our 6th year fostering. Yeah. Dude, I said I would never do that. And the fact that we've made it this far, is just cool. And it's been awesome to impact the lives of children. Some of ways we'll never know because we don't have any contact with a lot of those kids. And then we just have deepened some friendships here.
Yeah.
Leaving our previous church, some friendships, we thought, it'd just be the same, and just because we're not in each other's lives. You've experienced the same thing. it's just not the same. And then we lost some friendships, in our move, and that's maybe a whole nother podcast in 6 years from now.
Right.
But it's been rewarding. So those would be the things to celebrate. So let's look forward. We've been looking back a lot. We look back like a Baptist right now because we spend almost all our time looking back.
The good old days, the glory days
of 2021. But things
that are exciting about 2022, things we're looking forward to, or challenges. What do you want to say?
Let's talk about what are your goals? Some goals for 2021 for you personally, Justin.
So personally, talked about growing in contentment. That's kind of a goal and walk with the Lord. Just say like, hey, Lord, how are you? Like, it's a theme. Like, how are we constantly learning this? I think looking at goals tend to be like, I'm going to do all this stuff. And then I'm like, it's impossible. So I've set some more realistic goals in terms of reading and studying and books.
So one book this year versus two.
Last year I was like, I'm going to read 2 books a month. So this year I'm going to read 1 book a month.
Dude, if you're like Mark Driscoll, you could read a book a day.
A day. I thought that was the most ridiculous thing you ever said. I'm like, that's dumb. Yeah. And the fact that no one called him out on it publicly that moment.
That's why he and I wouldn't have been friends, because I would have called him out and he'd been like, you can't be around me anymore.
So this is a little more nebulous, but looking at what are the challenges looking ahead and how am I going to respond? So goal is I've said, and I told someone this the other day, that life is busy and life is crazy, and that's just probably not going to change. So I am going to resolve to a goal is to stop when people ask how's it going? How are you doing? To stop saying, good, just been busy. Because I think that's so dumb. Because everyone's busy, and then it becomes this oh yeah, I'm busy. Yeah, I know, I've been so slammed, and then it's the conversation just revolves around on how busy,
dreadfully busy.
I know, and it's so annoying. And
what song is that?
I think it's called Busy.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, but
I'm getting busy again.
So I've been trying to do this, and it's actually harder in conversation because you realize how much conversation revolves around how busy we are. So that is a goal.
True. It's a badge of honor.
Next is to intentionally grow in relationships in our neighborhood, and community, and then to just deepen friendships. That's. I think that's always a struggle.
Yeah.
One is the struggle for all guys, especially the stage of life,
Because we're so busy.
I know, because we're so busy. But also, in ministry too, it can be weird. So
yeah, it can be.
Talk about your personal
Why,
goals.
Justin? I thought you'd never ask. No, I have 4. I stuck with 4. The theme of 4.
Way to
go. I had a goal to lose more weight this year. I didn't do it. I wouldn't say that I had a net loss or anything, and I'm again healthy, but
you guys can go back through old videos of Boggy Talk and just see
just to continue to work on being healthy lifestyle. Number 2 would be just there's some family direction that's too much to talk about, but just schooling, what the long-term plan is. Just there's some things in our home. I'm like, we need to set better rhythms. Part of it's just, big family, so busy. But we need to set better rhythms. I should finish school this year. So that would be exciting. That would be number 3. And number 4 is, I take on this volunteer role as coordinator for the Emerald Coast Church Network. So that's kind of coordinating ministry for area Baptist churches. And I need to figure out what I'm doing.
Yeah. It's a lot. Well, it's kind of, and not to be, but it's there wasn't maybe a lot of direction. There was direction, but there was, so you're kind of picking up the reins of this and trying to give it direction, a little more direction.
Yeah, what is, I think the guy before me established kind of the pattern, but then it's okay, what is this actually going to look like? And, I think that.
And it's not really about leveraging. I
don't know fully.
Leveraging. There's some great churches in this area and all working together for the common goal. What is that goal?
Yeah,
and,
right.
I mean, the goal is the gospel.
Yeah.
But what does it look like specific?
What about for our church? What are your goals in the church?
Really, looking forward to this year. One of the things, Lord willing, the COVID doesn't rise again. Is our engagement globally in missions.
Yes.
I'm very excited about that. Some trips we have planned for 2022, looking ahead to 2023. And really, part of that's because we want to go and we want to serve some of the partners that we already have. We want to figure out what's the next step. And then really to grow that heart in our church, and I would say you have to grow that heart. Not that it's not existent, but to really fan that flame, because that is a piece of discipleship as well. And then also with the new community outreach and evangelism MLT, really figuring out strategically how we are engaging our people are engaging in sharing their faith, but also really engaging our community and strategically engaging our community. This church has a long history of doing great things, and in this community, and is known for that. And so what we're saying, kind of like with the Emerald Coast Network, there's been all these great things. Now, how do we really give it the direction it needs so it just is the most? And that's the question you're asking in any kind of level of leadership. Like, there's great things. So how do we leverage this for the greatest impact in our community? Because we love what God's doing here at Church on Bayshore, and we want to see more people know Jesus. Not just grow a church, but build the kingdom. And so a piece of that is how we're engaging our community. And then. I think those are probably the two biggest plans. Of course, want to continue to see things happen in worship ministry and, growth there, and, passion, zeal in our services and those things. So.
Yeah, though, I think that's... I have 4.
I don't have anyone in mind or anyone's facial expressions in mind when I say that.
I really don't. Anyway, another podcast. We're coming up with all kinds of podcast topics. Ministry leadership teams. We talked about that. We have the new community outreach ministry leadership team. I like to see them really get rolling. Missions doesn't have to worry about community outreach anymore. I mean, you know what I mean, in terms of strategy, so they can really focus on that. And then discipleship to really get rolling. What does men's and women's ministry look like? All those things. That's all one, just so you know. Number 2 would be, I'm kind of, I would say, the driver in our engagement with church planting in the state and nation. And so, really in revitalization. So part of that is in my ECCM role, but also some other relationships is really beginning to explore, hey, Anchor Church, in 2023, we'll be in year 3, the giving amount's going down each year. So we have some more resources to do that. So who is God leading us to partner with? So really discovering that. Number 3 is, I would say, we kind of started this before COVID, and then COVID, really put a damper on it, but is really multi-generational or intergenerational relationships. Yeah. That's actually what my doctorate project is on.
So and I really want to do something with it.
I have to do something with it to get to pass.
So what you're saying is we're just kind of like your test guinea pig subjects.
Test guinea pig. No, I really, that's why I chose that, is I want us to do that.
Yes.
Yeah. So our church is so great. If younger people don't get engaged the way that our older generation is, in 10 years, we're not going to be healthy because who's gonna give, who's gonna serve, who's gonna, so we really got to see our younger generation learning from the older generation, but I also think some of our older generation will understand more the decisions we're making and direction we're going when they get around younger families more. So that'd be number 3. And then number 4, it's just, I've got to grow as a leader. I have to be a better preacher. I have to be a better collaborative leader. I have to be just better at, casting vision. I am hitting a ceiling, and practically speaking, the church, God's grace is big, but, and my worth isn't tied to this, but this is my full-time job. So I need to be growing as a leader to really help us accomplish all the things the Lord is calling us to do. So that would be that.
So, So what do you think looking ahead? We've got great goals, and I think our leadership, our staff shares in these things as well. What do you think are the greatest challenges to these goals for the church?
Yeah, no, I think consumer Christianity, is just alive and well. And, the larger your church, the easier it is to just kind of come and, be a spectator. And I think that we can't have that. And we can't ever feel like, okay, we've arrived here, until we get to heaven. And I think that people kind of think that way, like, okay, kids ministry is really important. So I'll do that for a year. Okay, now I'm done, and then they don't do it again for 5 years. And it's like, we've done a good job of recruiting kids ministry volunteers, but now we're hitting 180 kids again on Sunday morning. We're not hitting kids, by the way. We're having 180 kids.
The number.
Yeah. So because we don't want to have volunteers who are hitting kids, we need great volunteers.
Volunteers.
That just requires more buy-in. And, I think that, and then why is there, in worship and just in so many things, this lack of enthusiasm? I just feel like people aren't preparing. Like the gathering is a reflection of our lives. And I think a part of the reason the gathering can feel like we're just going through the motions sometimes is because people are just going through the motions. And we're busy. I think we're so busy. So like, for me, I'm like, how do I get families to stop being so busy? First of all, be an example there, but, and think of others and serve others, so that, yeah. And then again, I think engaging our younger families. I think we need some more women in leadership with a voice. I hold to a biblical view of leadership in the church where, the role of pastor is reserved for men, but that doesn't mean that women shouldn't be these strong voices in the church. And so figuring out how to do that without creating disunity, I think is something I'm trying to do. Yeah, so that's not to downplay great women in our church.
Yeah, no,
there just need to be some visible leadership.
And that's shepherding. That's shepherding the church. Figuring out what that looks like as shepherding is, I agree with all those things. And I think, and added to that is that, anytime there's movement forward, this isn't just in a church, this is any organization, this is in our personal lives too. Like we move towards a way, like we kind of like long for what we've maybe had to give up, to get there. And I think, and this isn't just our church, this is so many churches who said, one of the benefits of COVID is that it refocused us as a church on the things that were important. And we, we dropped a lot of things that and maybe weren't the most healthy. And we, our tendency is like to start picking all those things back up. So we've got this new focus, but then we start picking up everything else that was keeping us off focus because we, and so I think we as a church can be reflective of busyness, as a collective people, not just busy in our own individual lives, but we're doing this and we're doing this and we're doing this and we're doing this. We have all these programs and all these things. Those things can also take us away from the focus of, our mission. And so I think that's a challenge, and that's more of something that we as leaders have to guard against and protect and really disciple into our people and leadership, our lay leaders in the church.
Yeah. And I think we'll have our vision night. We have prayer night this upcoming Sunday night, and then we'll have our vision night in February. And we're kind of talking about like what we're trying to get done and goals we have. And yet at the same time, like you want to have the DNA that Jesus has called us to have. And so I think, for every church our size specifically, I think that's something you wrestle with is like, how do we ensure we have the right DNA, but also press forward and, asking God really, hey, you help control the seasons of growth so that we aren't getting ahead of where our DNA can take us. And I think that's true of all our personal lives. And actually, I think, beginning next week, that's what we're going to be talking about in our new Boggy Talk series called Resolve.
Resolved. We are resolved to be resolved.
But I think everybody hey, image doesn't matter, but it does. And working hard doesn't make your worth, and it's not valuable, but it's important.
Exactly.
And so I think
Wow, those are some real boggy
Those
issues.
are, yeah. And I think it's a great way to start 2022.
And that's why we call it Boggy Talk.
Yeah. So I kind of gave a plug, but for me, I think it's constantly managing that tension, of being who we should be,
right,
while doing what God has called us to do as a church and then on an individual level.
That is good. So we hope you'll tune in these next few weeks as we begin that resolve, just talking about that tension. There are problems to solve and there are tensions to manage. So how do we manage that tension of these things? And really, as you're talking about all these goals and all these desires, here's what it comes back. It all comes back to Jesus.
Amen.
It comes back to the gospel. This is why we evaluate. This is why we look ahead. And this is why we say, I just go back to always in Scripture. He is the God who can do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine. According to Him, is the power that is at work with us in Christ Jesus. And I think that's the goal. It's Jesus. We want Him to be glorified. And so, let's press into that.
Amen.
What would you add to that?
I would add that you're a great co-host, Justin.
Oh, you're a great co-host. And that's why it's so boggy up in here.
It's also boggy because the humidity in this building is just really bad.
It is. It's the table sweats sometimes. No, hey, thanks for looking back, walking down a little 2021 memory lane with us. Thanks for looking ahead. And hey, we want to hear what you're thinking for 2022. What are your goals? How can we walk alongside you? How can we pray for you? How can we support you? And how can you really leverage your life for the kingdom in 2022? Amen. That's the question. And saying, Lord, this is all that's in front of me is unknown. You know it all. Let me join what you're doing. So that's the prayer. Join us next week as we kick off Resolved. It's going to be great. We're going to just figure every issue out with a lot of clarity, and it'll be super. So have a great week. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to Boggy Talk. We are so glad you joined in the conversation. Go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss a beat.